Okay, so this is the review for a circles and parabolas test, which is taking place tomorrow. And we started this in class today, but I want to go ahead and just go over all of it with you. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, partially because we've done some of these in class, but also partially because you can stop it at any time and watch a section again as much as you need to. All right, so first off, number one says, state whether the point -1, 3 is inside, outside, or on the circle whose equation is, and then it gives me an equation. The equation's not in standard form, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put that equation in standard form. To do that, I collect all the x's together and put a blank with them, and then I collect all the y's together and put a blank with them, because I'm going to be completing the square for each of those. That's what the blanks are all about. The number is already on the other side this time, but I need to add to it 2 blanks to balance things out when I complete the square. Now completing the square here means I'm going to take half of -12, which is -6, and square it. That gives me 36, which is what I add to both sides. Now whatever I got when I took half of -12 is what will be in here when I factor it. If this says -12, this is going to be half of that, -6. Keep in mind these will be the same sign. Same thing over here. Half of -2 is -1. Square it and you get 1. Add that to both sides. And now I factor, this is y minus 1 squared. Half of -2 is -1, and that's what I get there. Equals 45. All right, now this is the equation of the circle. If I want to know if a specific point, -1, 3, which is an x value and a y value, is inside that circle, outside, or on the circle, what you have to realize is that anything that fits into here and makes a true statement, in other words, if I put an x and a y in there and it's equal to 45, is on the circle. So if I plug in my x and y and I get a number over here that is less than 45, that means it didn't make it that far away from the center. It's inside the circle. If I plug in a number and I get a point and I get an x and a y and I get a number over here that is bigger than 45, that means my point is farther away from the center than the points that are actually on the circle. So it's kind of like this. It's like, here's my center. The points that are on the circle, they are a certain distance away from the center of the circle. Okay, if it's more than that, it's outside the circle. If it's less than that, it's inside the circle. And the formula for a circle is kind of the distance formula. It really is just a special case of the distance formula, because that's how we define a circle. It's the set of all points that are a certain distance, what we call the radius, away from that center. So I'm plugging this point in for x and y to see if I get a number less than, greater than, or equal to 45. So this is -7 squared plus 2 squared, which is 53. 53 is greater than 45, so I'm going to say that is going to fall outside the circle. I am more than whatever the radius is away from the center of the circle. All right, write the equation of the following graph in standard form. I need 2 things to write a circle equation in standard form. I need the center and I need the radius. So I'm going to find the center. It's at -2, 1. So that's HK. And I need the radius, and I see how far it is to the edge of the circle from that center, and that's 2 units. So I'm just going to plug in. Remember that the equation is right over here. This is the one we're plugging into. So I get x minus a -2 makes +2 squared plus y minus 1 squared equals r squared. R squared is 4. That's my answer. Next, same idea. Write the standard form equation for a circle with the center at 2/3 -7 and a radius of 3/4. This is H, this is K, this is R. Those are the things I need to have to plug in. And so I'm going to do that. Okay, now my r is 3/4, so when I square that, 3/4 times 3/4 is 9/16. That's what you get when you square this, 9/16. And that is my equation. All right, the next one, number 4, we do a lot like number 1. I'm going to collect all my x's together and put a blank. Collect my y's together and put a blank. And then I'm going to move this number over to the other side. That 8 in number 1 was already moved for us. This time I'm just going to add 7 to both sides. And I get blanks here. So I get to complete the square here, complete the square here, and make sure to add whatever I add over here on this side as well. So half of -2 is -1. Square that, you get 1. So it's x minus 1 squared. Half of +2 is +1. Square that, you get 1. And so I'm going to add a 1 over there too. So we get 7 plus 1 plus 1, which is 9. There is my equation. The center is +1, -1. And the radius is 3. Remember that what you see in the equation is the radius squared. So if r squared is 9, take the square root of both sides and you get 3. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do this one, and this is the last one I'll do on this video, and then I'll make a separate video for the back. So circle has diameter with endpoints of -4, 5, and 6, 5. If you are given a grid, that's a huge hint you need to graph it. Even if you didn't have a grid, you probably should have graphed this one. So -4, 5, and 6, 5. These are the endpoints of the diameter. Okay, so remember a diameter, and this is just a sketch, but it looks something like this. Okay, find the center and the radius. Well, the center would be right at the middle of that diameter, which means at the midpoint of the diameter. And if we want to find the midpoint between 2 points, we use the midpoint formula. So the center is going to be, remember, midpoint formula is nothing more really than averaging the x's and averaging the y's. Notice that this time the y's are on the same line, so it's just going to be 5. It's going to be on that line, and you could really just count since it's a horizontal line. But I'm going to go ahead and use the formula. 2 over 2 is 1, and 10 over 2 is 5, and you get 1, 5. That's the center of the circle. The radius, I could use distance formula from this point to this point, or from this point to this point. So that's how I would do it if it weren't on a horizontal line. It's on a horizontal line, so I can just count that. From 1, 5 to 6, 5, or 1, 5 to -4, 5, that's a distance of 5. So now I can write the equation. That's my h, k, and there's my r. So x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. R is 5, so r squared is 25. And that's my answer. And the back of this review is all about parabolas, so I'm going to do a different video for that one.